This is my story of how gratitude transformed my life into a tale of wonder. It all began with the approach of my 50th birthday. I liked the idea of celebrating, but I wasn't so sure if I really wanted a party. I'm a therapist with a bent toward Jungian psychology. I'm reflective, I'm analytic, I'm an introvert, not your typical party material. So while I liked the idea of celebrating, I really wasn't sure I wanted a party. Besides, I really wasn't sure I wanted people to know that I was turning 50. I rather preferred the idea that I could still pass for 48 on a really good day. While I was contemplating how I might celebrate 50 years of life, my grandmother was dying at 105 and a half years of age. I flew to be with her one last time. Sitting with her, I thought of everything that she had done for me in my life. I thought of how she had lived her life. Her life was never easy, and yet she seemed to handle each transition with courage and with curiosity and care for other people. I longed to have one more conversation with her. I longed to be able to say, "Thank you for everything you've done for me. Thank you for leaving me this blueprint of how I wanted to live out my days." But the opportunity had passed. Her brilliant mind, so diminished by dementia, she no longer recognized me. She no longer could hold a conversation. I thought about my parents. I thought about a beloved aunt living in a nursing home in Florida. And I knew in that moment that I did not want to get to their funerals and speak these warm words of appreciation in a eulogy, wishing that I had said thank you while they were alive. I left the nursing home that afternoon, knowing I would never see my grandmother again. I left the nursing home that afternoon knowing exactly how I wanted to celebrate my 50th birthday. I wanted to write 50 letters of gratitude to people who had profoundly changed my life through their support, their encouragement, their love, and their belief in me. Immediately, the idea felt right. And immediately, this idea felt a bit ambitious and daunting. So I decided to keep this private and solitary and tell only one person, a delightful young woman working in the stationery section of a bookstore. I carefully explained this passionate endeavor of mine and told her that I needed to find just the right stationery. After 2 hours, I selected these cream-colored crane note cards with an amethyst border, a little nod to my February birthstone. Even then, I was worried about completing the project, and I was worried about completing it with the same passion and enthusiasm that I felt in the infancy of the idea. So I decided to create some guidelines for myself. The first guideline is that I would thank only the people to whom I was truly grateful, people who had profoundly changed my life. I wanted no obligation, no pressure to thank people just because I'd spent a lot of time with them. The second guideline that I gave myself was that the focus would always stay on the writing and the sending of these letters, not on receiving a response. The third guideline is that whenever possible, I would include this memory, this vivid memory, or this actual conversation that I'd shared with people that seemed to highlight the qualities of which I was so grateful. These were letters of gratitude, not notes. Determining who would receive these letters was the most curious part about the project. Initially, it was easy. There were a handful of people that had had such a strong impact on my life that I knew I wanted to thank them right away. But after about 15 letters, I had a slight problem. I had 35 more people to identify, 35 more letters to write soulfully. I will tell you right now, there is no guide or manual for letting us know who changes our life. So the only thing I could think of was that I constructed this imaginary timeline of historical dates and events, just like the kind we used in grade school and taped to the top of our desk. And starting at the left, I began to mark off dates. The day I was born, the day I went to college, the day I moved to the Philippines. But being a true therapist, I knew that dates alone would not reveal the most significant incidents. And so I created a second timeline of emotional experiences, emotional events. When had I felt the most joy? When had I felt so secure and taken unimaginable risks? When had I felt great sorrow and despair and hopelessness? When had I not been watching my own shadow and hurt people that I really loved? I began to dream about people. I paid attention to these conversations or these snippets of conversation that I'd held in my mind for years. They had felt significant, but I'd never really understood why. I began to realize that none of these emotional experiences had occurred without the companionship of specific individuals in my life. Even more intriguing was to realize that many of these individuals had been a part of my life a short time. While their interaction with me had been brief, their impact had been so strong. Even in these times that had felt so painful, so difficult, I was positive that I'd been alone. I was so positive that I'd sojourned without any company. But looking back, I began to see that people had been with me all along, even without my initiation or without my seeking. It was as if they were magical helpers stepping out from a fairy tale to join me on my walk on the road. Within the world of fairy tales, there is a genre known as wonder tales, in which the seeker, over a great length of time, encounters obstacles and challenges and all these episodes of marvel and even danger through which archetypal figures are met. Well, when we think of fairy tales, we usually think of that happily ever after. Who doesn't want happily ever after? But those of us who've lived life long enough know that happily ever after seems to be reserved for a select few, if any. Honest assessment reveals that much of life is about obstacles and challenges, and even episodes of marvel and sometimes danger. Perhaps our tales become wondrous, not because these obstacles and challenges are eliminated or avoided, but because through these obstacles and challenges, we meet the characters who are to be a part of our story, the sweetest part of our life. Halfway through the project, I had a little fun. I decided to assign archetypal titles or universals to the people receiving my letters. Now, sometimes, a traditional archetypal title fit perfectly to the person I was sending a letter to, and other times I just took liberty and created my own. Remember that an archetype is simply that typified example, that form or model to which we can all relate. I was delighted to find that in my story, I had tricksters, I had unruly allies, I had a playboy, I had a saint, I had a shepherdess, I had a white knight and traveling companions. Here are a few others. The shaman, that one that moves between the real and spiritual worlds, offering magical healing. This is the woman who taught me most about gratitude. The coach. Years before I reached her classroom, one English teacher believed that I held potential in an area of storytelling competition. She took her one day off each week to drive me to competitions through the state. Ah, the fool. In 7th grade, one boy proclaimed his love for me, pretty much everywhere he went. At 13, I was horrified. At 50, I thought it was fantastic. Not only, but beyond the affection that the fool gives, the fool reminds us to bear our heart unabashedly without regret. The aerial dreamer. No one lived their life with more passion than Marvin. I spent many hours as a child in his personal open cockpit biplane, examining the world from above. Lastly, Carl Jung reminds us that not all of our favorite companions are human. He would refer to this as the animal companion, but I preferred my own title, the magical beast. She too received a letter of gratitude, along with a can of tuna. Ordinary people and one magical beast stepping into my life with extraordinary support and love and belief in me for my betterment and my improvement. I found emotional timelines do not stay linear. They rise and fall like mountains and valleys, and they snake through my page like a river through green pastures. At the end of this project, I was left with this topographical image of landscape and texture and color. It was the emotional topography of my soul. I've learned so much about gratitude in this project, but I want to leave you with 2 insights. I believe a tale of wonder awaits all of us when we feel that gratitude to the people who have been a part of our lives. You might look at your life as a series of unrelated events that don't hold a lot of meaning or significance now. May I invite you to look through the lens of gratitude. It is transformative. You will feel awe, you will feel humbled, you will be just amazed and even a bit breathless when you look at the love and mercy and kindness that people have shown you in your life. Even those really, really painful events in my life took on an entirely new perspective when I looked at the people who had surrounded them and how grateful I was for their part in my life. I was left at the end of this project with a testimony of grace and love. Second, I believe that gratitude deserves expression. We can feel gratitude, but that weight, that magnitude, that full blossomed beauty of gratitude is most complete when we show our appreciation to the people who have made our life abundant. Once upon a time, a child was born in a Minnesota blizzard. The small family welcomed the child, loved her, watched her grow. She spent her childhood in the sweet pastures of innocence, lost in imaginary play of what might be. At night, she dreamed of flying outside the lines. She heard the call and left the known to find herself in treasures of gold in a bigger world. As with every tale of wonder, she discovered pleasure. As with every tale of wonder, she encountered witches, dragons, ogres with real names. Her heart broke. She made mistakes, and she lost her way. And like so many of us in this journey, the swamplands tried to swallow her alive. But they couldn't hold her down. The divine was at work. And in the darkest night, the shaman appeared to our heroine, teaching her lessons of gratitude while she struggled to find hope. She was a poor student, unable to recognize this great teacher disguised with a bad wig. And so lessons were repeated over and over as she suffered the dark night of the soul. Eventually, she escaped the swampland, but not before the shaman's lessons were imprinted on her heart. She began to climb the mountain of her dreams, slowly, steadily, acquiring true and unlikely companions in her ascent. A wise old man, a stranger in an art museum, a fairy godmother. But this time, she knew to look more closely. Pay attention to those you least suspect will guide you. Yes, she learned that achieving the good life is not found at the top of the mountain. Rather, it is found with your people in the everyday, ordinary journey. Because, you see, it is this culmination of people who have believed in you, who have supported you and loved you and encouraged you and believed in your dreams outside the lines that makes your story and my story marvelous. A tale of wonder, actually. That young woman is not so young anymore, though she would love to think she could pass for 48 on a really good day. She can be found in one of her 2 gardens. The first is a small plot of earth where she grows roses, fragrant and pure of color, the magical beast always near. The second garden is cultivated through a small stack of cream-colored note cards with an amethyst border, reminding her of the day this whole marvelous journey began. And picking up her pen, she begins to write from a heart of gratitude to the people who make her life very rich. Thank you.